Okay, so first things first, the basics, the fundamentals. So with this installment, what I'm gonna do is a lot of talking. I'm gonna do a lot of talking. I'm gonna do a lot of demonstrating, a lot of showcasing when it comes to live streaming, the act of live streaming. And more specifically, I'm going to go into detail about the program that I use. Not only just me, but many popular live streamers, many Twitch streamers, for example. Basically anybody that throws out live feeds from their studio setting to showcase or to show you whatever they're doing, capturing their game, or they're being creative, or whatever the case is. Just doing live streaming, period. I'm going to go into depth with the program that I use in particular, and I'm going to stumble and bumble, I know, but whatever, I'm going to do this anyways. The software that I use is called OBS. It's pretty popular. It's not obscure at all. Many individuals use it because it's so versatile and so robust. It's an open source program, and OBS stands for Open Broadcaster Software. It's an open source program, open source meaning that a community of individuals, of very sophisticated, intelligent individuals, they come together and they work together to code and develop this program, this software, in such a way that it's amazing. They monitor it, they update it, they check for bugs, they make sure that it's working properly and whatnot, and they all do this for free. That's why it's categorized, or it's considered open source. That's the idea behind open source. There are a number of different programs that you can use that do require you to purchase a license. You actually got to pay money for it. And me personally, I don't necessarily feel as though those softwares that you do make a purchase on, that you actually buy the license to, I don't believe they offer much more in terms of usability. Like, they don't operate that much more better than OBS in terms of what you're trying to do, live stream or record or whatnot. This software, OBS, I've been using it for forever now, and it didn't cost me a penny, and it's a very powerful tool. It's incredibly powerful. It's really good. It's really good for what it does. Let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you some examples first of how to pick up OBS for yourself. You want to go ahead and download it. Let me swap my camera here. Simple. You just go and you do a quick Google search, OBS, and it's here. Go ahead and actually, this is for Streamlabs. OBS has two versions of itself. The original OBS, which you'll see on the right hand side here, it's the very plain Jane vanilla version of itself. But then you also have Streamlabs, which the OBS team, I use air quotes, and I say that word loosely because it's not necessarily a team of individuals who were brought in order to make this happen. It's a community of programmers and developers all throwing their input and their knowledge in order to make this creation possible for the community to use at large. And so you have the original version of OBS, and then you have its gaming counterpart called Streamlabs OBS, which comes with a number of different features that are unique to that particular genre of gaming for gamers. And maybe I'll if I have any time, I'll jump into Streamlabs a little bit and just give you an idea of the difference, the subtle differences between the two of them. So you just do a search for OBS, real simple, and then you'll find it here, Open Broadcast Software. Then you go ahead and click on it, and it brings you here. It brings you to their main page. And then you figure out what your system is, and then you just go ahead and grab your copy, and you get it downloaded. You go to Wikipedia real quick, and a brief history about OBS and its nature and the way it operates and whatnot. So once you got it downloaded, I'm actually going to go in here. I'm going to bring up my copy. I've got two monitors, and I've got OBS running over here, actually recording all this as I speak. And then I opened up another one so that I can actually run through it in detail and show you where everything goes. So here you go. You got OBS, and once it's open, you got your preview window here at the top. It's basically what your audience is going to see. what you can expect your audience to see. And then you've got a number of different windows with different options and different stuff that you should pay attention to, or that you can pay attention to when you need to, you know, make changes and whatnot. And I'll go through each one of them. What OBS can allow you to do is one of two things. You can either live stream, as you can see here, start streaming, the option to go ahead and begin to send out the feed of whatever it is you're trying to show to your audience, or you can start recording, which as it suggests, it's going to use all of your components and all of your hardware, webcam and everything, and it's going to start recording what you're trying to present, what you got going on, directly into your hard drive. And that's what's going to happen there. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be live streaming at the same time. I've never thought about trying that. I've never needed to. So either or, you can click live stream to go and start the feed to whomever, or you can hit recording and then you can record a session to yourself, just like I'm doing right here, right now. Over here on the top left, hit file. As of right now, this settings up here in the top left underneath file is the same as this settings over here on the right hand side. Same thing. It's just for expedience sake. That's why it's over here. Remux recordings is very, very important. I'm going to come back to that later on in the video. I'm going to give you guys a breakdown of what that does or what it's meant to do. You got edit up top, copy filters. Filters are depending, say for example, you have your microphone here, you have the little gear. You click the little gear for the microphone, and then the options for the microphone filters comes out. And as you can see here, it's pretty self-explanatory. You have several filtering options for your microphone that you can mess with. Later on, I'll jump through each one to give you an idea of what they are. But you can copy those presets that you already have. Is what that does. Transform. This has to do with your preview window over here. Order. I believe the same thing. Preview. If I were to click this, it's actually going to project this outwards and give me a full view example of what I see there, as opposed to this little window here. And that window can be moved up and down. You know. Lock preview so that it doesn't move around. Your preview over here, it doesn't move around at all. Advanced audio. This, I'll get back to this at a later point in time. So, view. Full screen. Let's do it. Now you're in full screen. Let's get out of that, so we're not disorientated. Docks. These windows that you see here, scenes, sources, audio mixer, scene transitions, they're all like windows in blocks, and they're called docks. So what it means is basically you see scene source list buttons is checked in. If you uncheck it, you just lost one of your little windows down here. Basically, all of this that you see here can be rearranged, I believe. Like if you come in between these two, you see how you can open one and close the other one. And I think if you grab, yes you can, if you grab the name of it, the actual name of it right here, this bar, and move it around, you can actually figure out where you want to have it set, preset to where you feel most comfortable, where it's easier for you to see it, recognize it, whatever the case is. So all of this interface is interchangeable. You can remove entire pieces of it completely. That's basically the way they behave. Not the most important part of this tutorial, but just to let you know. So your profile, there are a handful of very unique niche things that this iteration, this version of OBS can do that the other one that's meant for gaming, Streamlabs, can't do, and vice versa. When it comes to your profile, that's one of them. Unlike Streamlabs OBS, because of its nature, because it asks you to connect your main profile, which is whatever copy that you open up when you first fire up Streamlabs, it asks you to connect that to your social media, your Twitch or your YouTube or whatever the case is. Because of that obligation, you're not able to do this profile setting like you see here, unfortunately. This is super helpful. Say for example, if you have your presets of all your OBS here, your scenes and your sources, you have it preset specifically for your Facebook, right? Yeah, you have it set up for your Facebook, and you only want these presets to be applicable to that Facebook. Then you come up here into profile, and then you create a new one. Create a new profile and just call it Facebook. And then let's say you have two other platforms that you want to change your settings to, your presets to. Then you go ahead and create those two, and you select them. And then once they're there, you just tab between them so you can open and close them. You can't do that in Streamlabs, unfortunately. Let me see if you see, we got it. Yes, you can see it there. Okay, so if I move this out of the way, there's no option. There's no option for profile, none of that. Even if you were to come into settings, there isn't any. This instance is basically the one and only instance because it's connected directly to your Twitch, for example. Mine is, and you can see it there, the little Twitch symbol that I've been using it for that. So it's not possible. While over here, it really helps. It helps when you want your specific presets for whatever platform that you're using. It's helpful. It's really good. Scene selection. You can run through all this over here. Scene selection is similar to the profile, only in that it's specific to your scenes here. These scenes are for this specific profile that I'm on right now. It's just a default one. I didn't create a brand new one. So I believe this behaves the same. Your tools, run through this. It should be pretty self-explanatory. Let's go ahead and jump into the actual meat and potatoes of what's going on here. Scenes, say you're in a room, like this room, for example, and this is your scene. Whatever you got going on is happening in this room. Within that scene, you can have different angles of what's happening within that scene, but it doesn't leave the area of this room, the context of this room. Once you have a scene established and once you have an angle established, like right now, I have several of these. If I click through them, do I have any changes? No. I can, however, on the one I'm actually recording, I can jump to just me, still in the room, just me with my desktop being recorded by OBS, because OBS is capturing my screen. And then I can have different versions of just me happening with these different scenes. Within each scene, you change specific components that has to do with what you're trying to display. What does that mean? If I'm just me right now, I'm still selected on just the webcam right now. And if I come into sources over here, does it show up over here? I'm gonna click on this little eye on the other monitor that I have. You click the eye and it goes away, but I'm still within the scene. I'm still within the scene of just me. So then I open it and then I'm back. Another easier way to explain it is if I come over here to monitor 1, your main monitor, cap, that's what that stands for, and I decide to just take out me, I can do that. I can just take out me. And what I did was, sources are multiple inputs and outputs that you have connected to your machine. Let me go ahead and click the little add button. Oh, okay. So if you wanted to add a scene, it's these little options down here. Like these little options down here, the arrow keys and the plus and minus. I'm gonna hit the arrow key one time. And what the arrow key does, it moves, I'm selected in monitor cap 1, you hit arrow key and it moves it downwards. Or you can grab it and manually do it, either way. Plus or minus means whatever selected, take that away, minus, or add another one, plus. And if I do it on this screen, it'll ask you to add a new scene, and then you just add a new scene and call it whatever you want it so that it makes sense to you and you're done. Once your scene is established, over here in the sources category, same deal. The arrow keys do the same thing. They move them up and down. The gear doesn't seem to do anything unless you select it. You have to select something, you hit the gear, and it'll ask you, what about that particular device or that output or that input? What are the specific features that are available to OBS? What are you trying to do with that item that you have selected? So within Monitor Capture 1, I have my camera and the main monitor. So I'm capturing my screen and I'm also capturing the webcam. If I wanted to, I hit plus and I have all of these other options of inputs and outputs and stuff that I can also add to that particular scene for that particular screen. If I was playing a video game, you click on this one, for example, and OBS will try to detect any apps, they consider it an app, any apps that qualify or fall within the category of a video game, of a gaming app. It'll try to find any sources of that and grab it and then do the performance of displaying it on your window there. If you don't have the game open, it might not work. If you don't have any games open, it might not work. But if you do have a game open, it'll do its best to try and find it. You could also, if you wanted, a video capture device would be a webcam. If you wanted to add not only the microphone that you're using, but another audio input, then you would audio input capture, which is, we were to do that, and then once you name it, hit OK. You can either create the new one or add an existing one if it happens to exist in another scene. And in some examples, like in Streamlabs OBS, in another, I believe it's called profile. Over here we have profiles, but then over there you have different, it's themes, thematic presets, the thematic customizations. And then I'll show you to you real quick. Like for example, over here, I'll put them right next to each other. Cancel. You'll notice underneath scenes right here, it's not the same as this one. If I open it, I do have an option for scenes. And it brings me to a very basic stock looking layout with these windows, with these docks here. However, if I come back up here, I also have these presets that you get from the Streamlabs store because it's geared specifically towards gaming, and they offer a whole library of different customizations and whatnot. Let me go back to Mystic Blue, and then within Mystic Blue, the theme is considered Mystic Blue, and it'll give you, like, say for example, this bar down here, that's a part of the theme that they come stock with it, and then you can add pieces, you can take away pieces, take away the name, the blue bar. You can do a bunch of little customizations, but within Mystic Blue, you have the different options here, which technically would be considered scenes. And then the sources that follow. New donation, new follow. If you see, as I click, it'll actually pinpoint where it is on the screen, those items that are inputs and outputs and sources and whatnot. So let me come back over here, come back to my example. We're gonna add a new one, we're gonna add audio. Create a brand new one or drag in an existing one if it has presets and filters that you agree with. You hit OK. And then once you do that, it's gonna ask you what audio device you're talking about. Right now I'm on the Yeti, but if I had another one, like let's say for example on my headphones, I look through this list and I can find it. There it is. I look through the list, I find it, I select it, and now I have that option available to me. I can turn it on and off within here, within this menu, or within here, like the camera. I turn it on or off, whatever I need. So that's how scenes and sources work. It's pretty intuitive. It's not that difficult. Once you got that done, audio mixer over here. Oh look, it's capturing me. Let me go ahead and delete that one because we don't need that. Remove. Yes. So now we come back and we only got the two. So audio mixer over here, as it applies, it's going to show you all of the different audio sources you have going on. Your microphone, as I speak, you'll see it there. Your desktop audio, if you have a music file playing in the background, or your browser, or whatever the case is. Your camera, you know, most of the time they come with built-in microphone. You don't ever want to use it. It's not that good, but that's what that is. And then you have these options over here. I don't mess with these options too much. What I do mess with is the settings. A lot of the times you come into the settings, and here is where a lot of the OBS stuff comes into play, because you want to set up your feed if you're live streaming or if you're recording, you want to set up the options in such a way so that it gives you the best quality, the best version of what your computer is able to handle, and also what you feel comfortable with. In order to do that, you come through here and then you just look at all of these different options. You go one by one. General, as it implies, it's general stuff, self-explanatory. You run through all of this. I don't touch a lot of this. The options that I touch the most often are for output and video, most of the time. If you go on YouTube, there are a number of individuals who have different examples of the options that works best for them. You have to keep in mind your hardware, that's a mosquito, your hardware and your internet speed and what your internet can or cannot do and what your computer can or cannot do. I hope that's not getting picked up on the camera. I'm gonna kill it. So self-explanatory here. There's not much that you can go with. You can read through this by yourself. Stream. When you select this one, like Streamlabs, OBS also has the option to ask you if you want to connect directly to any one of your social media platforms. In this particular example, Twitch, and then they have a number of different platforms to choose from. Oftentimes, I'm gonna bring it up here. Oftentimes, I use, instead of connecting directly to my Twitch channel, what I like to do, and a lot of people like to do it too, because it's the best. They instead get an address. In order to connect to any one of these platforms, you need a specific address, a key that points directly to that account that you have created. And by doing that, then that's how OBS knows where to send your feed, your live stream to. Instead, I like to use Restream. Many people like to use Restream because what you're doing is, as this image implies, you send it directly to your Restream account, and what they do, they use their servers and their technology, and they spit it back out to all of the different platforms that you're trying to reach and connect to. Coming back over here, what I do, but I don't do it here because I don't use OBS for live streaming. I use Streamlabs. What you would do is you would select which service you want, and instead you would pick Restream.io. And what ends up happening is you select that, and then connect account. When you click connect account, Bitdefender is going to be like, hey, there's happenings here happening, or whatever. It's gonna ask you for your credentials to finalize that connection process, and then you just log into your Restream account, whatever it asks you for, just go ahead and do it, and then it'll be hooked up, it'll be connected. Use stream key. This is the address that I had mentioned already previously. This is what you input there, and you grab it from your account over here. When you log in, there'll be a section there where you can actually go and search for it, and once you have it, it's like a long key. You input it in there, and then you're good to go, like that. Output. This is where things get tough. Before that, though, I want to move over to, I'm gonna get the easy ones out of the way. Audio. Audio is self-explanatory. You pick however way or whichever settings you feel comfortable with that your computer can handle audio wise. The only thing here that you want to pay attention to, I believe, is your mic auxiliary, what your actual microphone input that you're going to use in order to, for OBS to pick it up also, so that it picks you up. I use this RTX voice. What it is, it's like a masking third-party type of thing. Instead of hooking up directly to the Yeti is operated through this RTX voice, and all it does, it just cleans up the sound quality and whatnot. It gives you little features. It's just a little add-on. So that's all it is. And the rest of this is self-explanatory. Push to talk, push to mute, all that stuff. You go ahead and you get that set up to whatever key you feel comfortable with. Here you go. Push to mute, push to enable. That's your own personal preference. Video here, base canvas resolution is what OBS is going to record. That's not your game. Your game, if you're playing a game, for example, You set your game's resolution to whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever your PC can handle. This base canvas resolution is what OBS is working with. And if you wanted to, I don't do it because it's just more work. It's more resources being eaten up for no reason. If you wanted to, you record, OBS will record the base canvas of whatever you got going on, but then what it outputs into your platforms, into your feed or whatever the case is a rescaled size resolution of whatever you want. Right now it's 1080. I click this and I can record in 1080 on the base canvas in OBS, but what I put out is 720, for example. I don't do that again because that whole process of scaling it down, that's going to eat up resources. For me personally, I just keep it 1080. That's it. Downscale filter, not exactly sure what this does, you know, in detail, but basically if your computer is strong enough and it can handle it, just put it on the maximum. Mine is a pretty robust PC, so I just put it on the max. If you notice performance hits, drop it, see if it helps, see if it works. Common FPS. This is pretty obvious. What frames per second is your OBS recording in or recording at? I put it at 60 again because my machine is pretty tough. And so again, for you all, if you see a performance hit, drop it. Drop it to whatever you feel comfortable with or whatever you can work with, and then that's it. Hotkeys, self-explanatory. This is everything that OBS can do, and then you come in here and then you click something and then you reset it to whatever, and then when you want to do that one thing like show cam or switch the scene, you hit your little hotkey real quick and you swap. Advanced, I don't come in here for much, although in terms of avoiding lag issues, frame lag, and the such performance hits, you come in here to process priority of OBS as it's doing its job, and then you click in here and you hit high. Depending on how much your system begins to struggle, you may want to drop it, put it above normal, and then play with it to see if your particular machine can handle, you know, all of the requests, the demands that are happening on screen. Video, I don't touch it. Recording, I don't touch it. None of this I don't touch. I don't touch anything. Networking, I'm going to get into this when I come back to output, but network, when it comes to live streaming, not necessarily recording for yourself, but when it comes to live streaming, there is an element that you have to pay attention to with respect to your internet speed. One way to double check your internet speed and make sure that you have an idea of what you're working with, you go to speedtest.net, just like that, speedtest.net. A lot of people use it. I use it too. And what it's going to do is just going to click. And it's going to go through its thing. And what it's going to do is going to tell you your average ping, your download, and your upload. When you're live streaming, download is not as important as your upload, because when you're uploading, the bits, the megabits that you're working with, as this thing goes through its process, the megabits that you're working with determine the overall quality of your feed. Even though you will record your gaming session at 1080 resolution, 1080p resolution, for example, that doesn't necessarily mean that your image, your final product image, is going to be, you know, fantastic and amazing and just shocking to the eyes. Within the canvas, within your frame there of 1080, you still have to deal with the little pixels and the little bits and whatnot, the information that's being broadcast per pixel per bit. And if you have 1080 frame but you're only uploading at 2000 megabits per second, for example, it's going to get blocky. It's going to get real blocky, real pixelated, you're not going to be able to tell too well what's happening on screen. It's gonna look terrible. It's gonna look bad. So what you do, in order to alleviate some of that issue, that network issue, if you're having any, you come over here to advanced and into network, and then you start playing with some of these options to see if you can improve the overall quality of what you got going on, right? This one finished. Download 94, upload is 24. What that means is, we come back over here, it's 24, right? What that means is Twitch in particular, because they're like the standard, they're like the average. Twitch has their rules and regulations and stuff. They recommend that you hover around 4 megabits, 4,000 bits, 4 megabits or so of upload speed in order to make the entire process smooth, so that not only can you stream to them without any issue, you stream to them with really good quality. 4 megabits is pretty good, you know, it's like the standard. And also for your audience, because you have to understand, you're sending out 4 megabits worth of information constantly. Someone on their mobile device might not be downloading at a speed that's necessary in order to properly enjoy or appreciate whatever it is you got going on. To them, it might start to buffer because it's too much information. It depends on the situation. 4 megabits in particular, that doesn't necessarily have to, that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be a problem. When you decide to go beyond 4 mega, like 10,000 or 15,000, whatever the case, then you start to run into issues, because then nobody can appreciate it. Nobody can watch it. They would literally have to be in an environment, like at their desk, in their room or whatever the case is, with good equipment in order to even just watch the stream. So let's come back over here. Now that we're done with all this, let's get into output and let's really get into what's going on here. So in output, up at the top, you have the 2 types of options here. You can do simple, and it'll give you just the bare bones, the very basic stuff that you need to pay attention to in order to make your stream happen. I keep it on advanced. It's not to say I'm advanced, it just gives me the options that I need. So after you select advanced, you have all of these options here at the top. Replay buffer, I don't ever touch it. And then audio, you can come in here, take a look around. I don't rarely ever touch it. Right now, I'm operating within the recording session over here on my other monitor as I'm doing this recording offline. And then you also have the streaming. We'll start with streaming first. Audio tracks, I don't touch it. I leave it on 1. Encoder, how is your machine grabbing all of this information, grabbing all of the capturing and the recording and whatnot, and compiling it and processing it? Are you using X264, which is your CPU, your actual processor? Or are you using, if your video card, depending on how expensive it was and how advanced it is, did it come with a chip that was designed specifically to handle compiling, capturing, live streaming, and all that? It comes with its actual, you know, its normal GPU, but then it comes with an additional chip that's specifically meant to do this process of recording and live streaming and compiling all that stuff. If you select X264, you'll see the menu changes. The list here, it changes. Put it back in NVENC and it changes. The difference is X264 is not recommended because depending on how demanding the game that you're playing is and what it is that you're trying to do, depending on how much, you know, how much resources it's asking for, you don't want your CPU to be eating up resources playing the game and handling the live streaming responsibilities and stuff. It's something. You're only asking for problems. Either your game is going to start to bog down, or your feed is gonna, one or the other is gonna take a hit potentially. So you don't ever want to do that, unless of course your machine is a monster, in which case you don't need to listen to the rest of this conversation. You're good. You're good to go. If you decide to pick X264, the rescale option, as you see it here, also that rescale option, it's here also. I'm not exactly sure why they did it twice. Whatever the case. Rate control, CBR constant bitrate. Bitrate is, again, within your canvas, those little details, those little bits, those little pixels that come out that actually draw the image on your screen so that you can appreciate the sharpness, the softness of the lines, all that good stuff. CBR is constant bitrate. The other ones, I forget what they mean, but it's basically all within the same realm. It's just a different way that it handles each one of those. ABR, VBR, CRF. I keep it at CBR, which is constant bitrate. That means whatever number you have it preset at, bitrate right now, for example, 2,500 kilobytes, it's gonna do, CBR is gonna do everything it can to maintain it at 25. If it has to dump frames, frames per second, you have 60 frames, and in each frame you got an action happening. If it has to just dump frames in order to maintain that CBR, that's what it's gonna do. You have no choice. That's what's gonna happen. So I keep it as CBR, and then the bitrate itself. This is what I was explaining to you before. That matters over here with your upload speed. It's super important. 2,500 kilobits per second is not that good. You can see stuff happening on screen, but you're not gonna appreciate it like you would, any one of these high definition videos or whatever the case is. It's gonna look, what you would do, what most people do, like I already mentioned to you, Twitch recommends 4,000, about 4,000. If you put it at 4,000 and you notice that you're starting to lag a little bit, you're taking too many hits, too many performance issues, or whatever the case is, it's okay to drop it down. Instead of 4,000, 3,500. 3,500 is good. It's good. So play with the setting, do a test run, put it at 4,000. Not too good. Turn it off, drop it a little bit, fire it back up, try it again, see what's up, and then see what works best for you. Use custom buffer size. I don't, never have. I have to double check and see how that helps or doesn't help. You all can, do a quick search yourself. Keyframe interval. I forget the details behind it, but I know that Twitch recommends that you keep it at 2. I just can't remember exactly what the point of this one is, but just keep it at 2. You'll be okay. CPU usage. This menu is only applicable to when you're using your X264, your CPU. It's only the case when you're using your processor, and these are the options that come out. It's a little bit confusing. It's a little bit, it's not really intuitive. The idea is ultra fast being the highest, and then you drop it until you get all the way down to placebo. What that means, or what it translates into, is if you're at ultra fast, details be damned. Who cares? Just go ultra fast. The slower you make it means use up more resources and make sure that we don't lose any details. Nothing. We want to keep all the crispiness, all of the quality, all of that, the HD, all that good stuff. We want all of that. So use up more CPU in order to produce all that good eye candy that we want. So if you drop it down to faster, then you're basically saying, if you have to use 60% of your processor in order to get me what I want, use it. What ends up happening? Can you continue to run your game on 40% that's left of the processor, plus all the other stuff, that little stuff that adds up, the OBS and whatever you got in the background? You really want to commit 60% of your processor to just the quality of your feed and 40 to your game? You're gonna notice problems, chances are. So that's why this works the way it works. Profile is basically prioritizing how much resources you want your CPU to use in order to put out your feed. Most of the time it's on either main or high. Tune, I don't touch it. And this last, I don't touch it at all. This entire section I don't touch in reality, because I don't use the processor. I use my video card. Came with that chip that's meant specifically to perform this process, this action. So you switch it to NVENC H264, which is that chip that's on the video card itself. CBR, okay, the video card's encoder, That's what it's called. It's an encoder. That chip is an encoder. The video card's encoder comes with slightly different options. You got CBR, CQP, VBR, and lossless. Lossless, as it implies, don't lose anything. Use up all of the resources you need. Don't lose anything. Keep all of it. All of it. So I keep it as CBR. Bitrate, this doesn't change, still the same thing. Same as the CPU. How many bits are you trying to shoot out there? 4,000, 3,500 to 4,000. Between that range. Keyframe, 2. Keep it at 2. Preset quality, this is not as similar as the CPU. This literally means what it implies here. How do you want just the quality to come out? Do you want it to be max quality, just quality, performance, max performance? You're dancing between quality and performance. If you're noticing that you put it on all the quality that you can handle, but then your performance is taking a hit, drop it a little bit and try to see if you can find the happy medium, the happy middle ground. Profile, I keep it on high because my machine can handle it. Look ahead, it's more quality stuff and it gives you a description of what it means. Psycho visual, same deal, gives you a little description of what's going on there. GPU is at 0 and the B frames, similar to the keyframes, keep it at 2. If you go and you search tutorials of other individuals explaining how OBS works and whatnot, you'll notice that they have different preferences over the B frame and the keyframe, and they also explain in detail what each one of them does. You'll get varying responses. Some people will keep one at 2 and then the other one at 1, and then they'll mix and match. You just got to play with it. Just to be safe, keep the both of them at 2 and you'll be all right. But if you want to dive a little bit deeper into what each one of those does, off the top of my head, I can't remember now. I got to go back and teach myself. You just go ahead and just search specifically B frames and keyframes and see what they got to say about that. It's not that big of a deal. It's not. I don't believe it's going to break the stream. It's just for fluidity's sake, I think, for smoothness. And then finally, for recording, we have type is standard or output, whatever this is. I don't do that. I use standard. The path, because this is all happening locally. You're not live streaming anything. Where in your hard drive do you want to save, like this session I'm doing right now? You just pick the folder where you want to save it. Generate file name without space, self-explanatory. This little piece right here, the format of the video. When you're recording, like I'm doing right now, and you're there, whatever, you're recording, and say for example, in the middle, 15 minutes into your session, something drastic happens, something critical, and you're in the middle of recording, then it just takes that hit, and unfortunately, some bits and pieces of your file becomes corrupt. Freak of nature, it's just randomly it could happen. You could be recording in the middle of a thunderstorm, lightning strikes, and then there goes your file. You lost some of it because it got corrupted or whatever the case is. This particular format, MKV, you have FLV, MP4, MOV, MKV, TS, and M3 U8. It is possible, and for most people, it would make sense when you're recording locally to record it in MP4 because that's like the standard recording format, and it works the best. Like anybody can play MP4. That's like the industry standard. Everything is oftentimes in MP4, unless you're on Apple, then it's like QuickTime or whatever the case is. ProRes, pre-res, I forget what it's called. The problem with recording, doing the actual raw, crude recording of your session in MP4 is that when that freak of nature happens and the lightning strikes or whatever the case is, something breaks, it has a higher probability of becoming corrupt, and then you got to throw away the entire thing if it's in the MP4 format, unfortunately. In order to circumvent that, in order to avoid that from happening, what most people do is they either do FLV or MKV. MKV. FLV or MKV. I forget the specific details behind the difference between these two. However, they're more or less the same thing in the way that in the nature that they behave. If you remember way in the beginning, 50 minutes ago, and I was showing you this, when I came up here and I showed you file and I said I was going to come back to Remux, I call it Remix. that's the section that I meant. That's what I was talking about. MKV, when you recorded it in that file, you can go back and you can watch it in MKV, but it's not MP4. And so because it's not that standard, there is the possibility that some people may not be able to actually watch that file because of its format. Instead, what you do is you set it to MKV like it was set there. Can I go in here? Yes, I can. You output, you recording, you set it to MKV, and then once you're done, once you're finished done, then you come into Remix, you click the little dots, and you go and you find your file that you just did. You come in here, click Remix, you click the little dots, and you go and you find the file that you just finished doing in its MKV format. And once you select it, you open it here, you hit Remix, and it's gonna turn it into a standard MP4 file. So that what ends up happening is, freak of nature happens, lightning strikes, whatever the case is, it doesn't become corrupt. You may lose some of your stuff depending on when and where the freak accident happened, but it's not gonna be totally lost. It's not gonna be a total loss. It's the file format allows for much more data to be preserved uncorrupted, and it's safer. That's what it is. It's safer. So that's what I've been doing. I do all of my stuff in MKV, and then as soon as I'm finished, I go up here, file, remix, little dots, find it, remix, blah, blah, finish, and now you got the two files. You got MKV and you got the MP4 standard format size or format type. So then there's that. Audio track, I don't touch it. Encoder, same deal. The rest of this stuff is pretty much the same as live stream, except the only fundamental difference is that it's not going out in a constant feed. It's just happening, being burnt directly into your hard drive. That's it. That's all that's happening here. And encoder, it even tells you, do you want to use the exact same settings as your stream encoder? And you can hit yes if you want, or you can specify. Doesn't matter. Same options, 264 or NVENC 264 encoder, or your CPU, your processor. You pick one and come back over here just for the sake of explanation. And then CBR, same deal. All of these, same deal. No changes. No changes. So then that's that. That's OBS, the basics of OBS. I wasn't too specific 100% on certain things. I understand that. And, you know, I continue to use it. I'm going to continue to use it and try to get even more savvy, even more advanced with using the software. But it's a really, really cool tool. It's very powerful, it's intuitive in some regards. It's a very good tool. I don't know which streaming software, programs there are there that you can purchase the license to. And really, with the least amount of problems that this software has given me, I don't really see a reason why to go and spend money on anything else. You get OBS and you're good, man. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. It's really good program to use. Right now, I think I'm just gonna drop that for right now, and then in another video, I'll just go ahead and give a little bit more details as to how Streamlabs operates. It's 80% the same, the bones and the guts and the bones. It's like 80% the same, except obviously you got some unique things going on here, for example, but it's mostly the same. Output, streaming and recording, this options that are here, NVENC, you know, 264, it's more or less the same. CBR, bitrate, it's more or less the same. So with that, I hope I covered everything, and if I didn't, then I don't know, next year I'll come back and do it again and see if there's any updates. It probably wouldn't be, but that's pretty much it for now. I'm gonna let you guys go and be on the lookout for the next feed. All right.